Hey guys, Josh Mosiman here of Motocross Action magazine, and welcome to our 2022 Yamaha YZ250F tested video. We're excited to break down this new bike. It didn't get a long list of updates for the new model season, but it did get a few significant ones. The rear end and the rear wheel are a lot lighter this year. It's got a new lighter rear hub, lighter sprocket, lighter chain, try to free up some of the weight in the rear end. It's also got a wider rim, so it went from the 1.85 to the 2.15 rear rim. The tires went from Bridgestone X20s to Dunlop MX33s. The tires also got a 110 rear on the back as well, so it's a little bit wider. It's supposed to have some more traction. The spokes are also updated. It's got a cross 3-spoke pattern, so interested to see how this bike handles on the track. The suspension settings have been updated to work with those changes. The graphics are a little bit different as well, so we know a lot about this bike. We've ridden it a lot over the years, and I'm excited to break down all the details that we know about this bike in this video. Yamaha's YZ250F has been its flagship model for the last few years. The Star Racing Yamaha team has shown that this bike can be incredible at the top level of the pro ranks. This bike won Supercross in the East and West Coast Series this year in 2021. It's battled for the title in like every season for as long as I can remember, last few years for sure. Also, it's battling for the championship in the 250 class during outdoors this year with Justin Cooper. So the Yamaha 250 is a popular brand, and there's always two sides of the fence when you're asking people about what their favorite 250F is, and the KTM and the Yamaha have always kind of battled for that position. Yamaha YZ250F got a lot of big updates back in 2021, so just 1 year ago. It was 1 year behind the YZ450F that it got the same frame that the 450 got, which is more predictable, easier to turn into corners, and has some updated stiffnesses and stuff like that. It also had updated brake calipers, brake rotors, top triple clamps, and other chassis upgrades. And last year that it got passed over from the 2020 YZ450. Also, last year's 250 got a lot of updates to the engine. So the intake system and the intake port were completely upgraded. The airbox was changed. The exhaust camshaft was updated. The muffler was lengthened. The ECU settings were updated. The water pump and the temperature sensor were updated. The cam chain tensioner, clutch basket, transmission gears, and crankcase all received big updates for this bike last year. As I mentioned, the YZ250 has been kind of the flagship model for Yamaha. The 450 has had a lot of people that love it, a lot of people that hate it due to the handling, and so the chassis is actually the same now from 250 to 450, but it's incredible how different these bikes handle on the track because there's so much less rotating mass going on inside of the 250F engine, where the 450F engine is a lot faster. You're getting a lot more torque, a lot more power coming out of the corners that upsets the chassis and just makes it harder to ride in general. So a slower engine always makes a bike handle better, and the YZ250F is one of the greatest bikes in handling in the 250 class, and the engine is strong as well in the low to mid power range. So talking about that engine, the YZ250F peaks out on horsepower at 42.65, so it's about a horse and a half off of the KTM at peak horsepower. But this bike, where it really shines, is in the low to mid power range. When you crack the throttle, it's right there. There's no hesitation. It doesn't take time to get going. This thing already has power coming off the bottom end, and that's something that a lot of people really like about the YZ250. It makes it easier to ride for average riders, and it's also fun to ride for pro riders as well. We do have to shift more on this bike than we do on the Austrian bikes, especially KTM, Husky, Gas, and Kawasaki are all super high revving machines that you really have to rev out to get all the power out of them. So it makes it a little bit harder to ride for somebody who's not as experienced and not going as fast. The Yamaha did get more top end power in 2021 with the updates they made, but it still feels a lot like a low to mid power bike with the engine that this bike has. So diving into the ECU mapping on the YZ250F, it has the Yamaha Power Tuner app like it's had for years before. It comes with a button on the handlebars that you can switch between the stock map and any other map that you install into the bike. But something you should know, when you buy this bike off the showroom floor, whether you click the button and turn the blue light on or not, there's both maps that are installed are both stock, the standard map. If you want to try different maps, you'll have to download the app, connect to your bike through the Wi-Fi, and then from there upload maps to the bike so you can try them back to back. So Yamaha intentionally doesn't give you two maps at the dealership so that you download the Power Tuner app. You get used to using it, get used to playing with it on your phone. You can make custom maps, and you can also download maps off the Yamaha website and plug them into your bike. So today we tried stock, we tried a high revving, high RPM map, and then we also tried an MXA map that we custom made last year when we were testing this bike. The map that we came up with was to decrease engine braking, as the YZ250 feels like it has more engine braking than some of the other bikes in the class. We wanted to keep the top end power, keep the low end power, but we wanted to decrease engine braking. So that was something that we did. And if you check out this video on our website, we'll add a screenshot of what our map was on our website so that you can see it there, and you can create your own MXA map for your YZ250F. Touching on the air filter, it's right in front of your crotch when you're sitting on the bike. You got the seat, you got the gas cap sitting underneath the seat, and then you got the air filter right in front of there. So it comes with the backward engine design that Yamaha has, the downdraft intake that it has. It was all updated last year, as I mentioned. The air filter is not our favorite. We like to use an aftermarket twin air filter that lifts the air filter off of the screen. That helps protect it, make sure we don't get dirt inside of there. Twin Air also has a power flow kit that seals a little bit better and allows more air to come into the air box as well. So that's something that we've done on Project YZ250F 4-strokes, and you see the Star Racing Yamaha team uses. They got some pretty sleek looking airbox covers that make the whole bike look smooth. You don't have a gas cap poking out of the top, and then the air filter box just continues to go up at the same rate the seat does. Allows more air to get in there, increase the engine's power, and just make it a little bit better on the track. Engines, they use air, fuel, and spark to go. If you have tons of fuel but you don't have air in the engine, you're not going to be going fast. So it's something that's really important and we talk a lot about. Diving into the chassis and suspension, this bike got the same 450 frame last year. It also got updated suspension settings last year and this year. So suspension this year, the forks are a little bit stiffer, try to give you a little more balance on the track. The frame, as mentioned already, it's a little more predictable, and we like it especially at corner entry. As for the suspension, we ran the sag at 105. It's kind of our go-to spot. Sometimes we like to drop it a little bit lower to 106 and even 107 on the YZ250F, but 105 is where we were today. As for clicker adjustments, we left this bike completely stock. We rode the YZ450 and the YZ250 back to back today, both settings. We liked what they gave us stock off the showroom floor, so that's one thing that's very impressive about Yamaha. The suspension is great, and it just goes to prove that a guy like me, pro level speed, was actually impressed with the suspension settings on the Yamaha 250F. Diving into the ergonomics, one thing that we always complain about is ergonomics on the Yamahas. The chassis and the radiators shrouds are just spew out a lot wider than any other bike. So you hop on a Yamaha and then you get on a Honda like I did today. I was riding the 2022 CRF250 today. And that bike feels so much skinnier. When you hop on the Yamaha, it's definitely a lot wider. It's something that I do not like and something that I wish we could get away from. I know the Star Racing Yamaha team and other Yamaha teams do different things to bring the shrouds in a little bit. It's something that you get used to, so I totally understand if a guy has ridden Yamaha for years or is comfortable riding Yamahas, that the wider shrouds won't affect him. But for somebody like me who's riding different brands, and I'm here to tell you how each brand feels, that's definitely something that sticks out as I switch between bikes. Diving into the specs on the YZ250F, this bike comes in at $8,499 off the showroom floor. Peak horsepower on this bike, as I already mentioned, is 42.65 horses. It hits that at its 12,600 RPM range. Actually hits its peak horsepower a little bit lower than some of the other bikes, and it is about 1.5 horses slower than the top ranking bikes. Last year when we dynoed this bike against the other models, it ranked 4th out of 7. We've actually already dynoed the Honda 250, which is the one that has a big change for this year, and this bike still ranks 4th. So peak torque on this bike is 19.99, and it's actually interesting to note, even though this bike feels super strong coming out of corners, it actually ranks 6th out of 7, only beating out the Suzuki in torque numbers. As for the weight, it weighs 227 pounds, 10 pounds heavier than the Gas 250. Sprocket ratio comes in at a 1350. Let's dive into the pros and cons and kind of highlight the things we like and we don't like on this bike. Highlighting a few things: the suspension, the KYB, SSS forks. You can't complain about these things. They're great. Yamaha is stuck with coil spring forks, while some of the other manufacturers like Honda, Suzuki, and Kawasaki have gone to air and they came back to coil spring. KTM, Gas, Husqvarna, they're still doing air forks and they've improved a ton, but Yamaha definitely wins best in class for spring forks on the suspension side of things. The engine is strong, low to mid. It's easy to ride for a long range of riders from beginner to pro. Durability, just like the YZ250F, this thing is the strongest in class. Definitely spend the least amount of money maintaining a YZ than you would if you had to buy a KTM, Honda, Kawasaki, some of the other models. So durability is something that we always approve of and thank Yamaha for. And as always, the Yamaha Power Tuner app is easy to use and it's not as confusing for motocross guys as some of the other situations are. Still, Yamaha Power Tuner, it's not my favorite thing to mess with. I'm not really a huge fan of hanging out on my phone at the track to make adjustments on my motorcycle, but for me, I'm the kind of guy that sets the setting and kind of is good from there and waits until next year, until the next bike, to really worry about it. So Yamaha Power Tuner app is something that I can get used to and set up a map that works good for me, customize it exactly how I want it, and then set it and keep going. As for the cons about this bike, ergonomics, it is too wide and too bulky. The foot pegs are too close to the seat for me. It's a little more cramped in the cockpit. The engine is kind of deceiving on this bike. Sometimes you think it's faster than it really is. You'll hop on another brand and drag race down the start like we did today with the Honda. And because there's actually holes in the airbox cover on the YZ250F, you get a lot more reverberation, you get a lot more sound coming from the intake, and that makes the bike sound louder, and it gives you kind of a deceiving feel on the track. So it's not quite as fast as I feel like it is, especially when I compare it to some of the other models. Air filter, there's not a lot of room in there, but the good thing is that it is easy to add a vented airbox cover and you can install it super easily. As for the weight, that is definitely a con. 10 pounds heavier as mentioned, and weight is definitely something that not a lot of people think about. So motorcycle manufacturers, they're always working to centralize mass, lower weight on the rear wheel like Yamaha did this year, and bring more of the weight to the middle of the bike so the bikes turn better, handle better, and have less stress on the forks and shock. By Yamaha, this bike is definitely a lot heavier. It's easy for some people to kind of overlook the weight aspect of the bike because you feel how strong it is. Weight is something that affects braking. It's not going to be as easy to slow down. It's not going to be as fast speeding up, and there's a lot of different things that we do to make these bikes lighter. So when you're buying another brand and it's 10 pounds lighter off the showroom floor, that's just a huge head start that you have on the Yamaha. So finishing things off, the 2022 Yamaha YZ250F. Comparing it to last year, the updates were really minor, and I do believe I would feel a difference if I rode them back to back, but really today we didn't have last year's model to ride. Yamaha didn't have the rear wheel that they had last year to ride back to back, so I didn't have a good gauge. The bike felt basically the same to me on the track, so if you're trying to decide between a 21 and a 22, well, you might have a hard time buying a 21 because bikes are in such high demand right now and everybody is sold out. But we did have a lot of fun today. Yamaha is always first class when they take care of the MXA Wrecking Crew. They brought us tacos today. Steven Tokarski is definitely the best in the business, always putting my bike on the stand. Me and him even got to race today, and I'm excited to share a video of me and him battling back and forth on Yamaha 250Fs, both bone stock, so that was a lot of fun. Thank you, Yamaha, for having us out and for giving us this bike. We're gonna be riding it for a whole nother year. We're gonna have a full article on it in Motocross Action magazine, and pretty soon we're gonna be lining it up against the KTM, Husqvarna, Gas, Kawasaki, Honda, and Suzuki models back to back, and we're gonna bust out an MXA Shootout in the 250 class, so we're excited about that. Thank you guys for watching this video. As always, motocrossactionmag.com is where you can find the latest news going on in the industry. We got race results from the weekends. We We also got bike tests and product tests all on our website, so you can check us out there. Motocross Action Mag on Instagram to follow what we're doing on social media, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with our latest videos. Also, if you haven't seen our YZ450 video, we also tested that bike today. You can click the video thumbnail now for that one and some of our recent bike tests.